Right to question, since Robert wants to start right away.
Robert said you're going to name a starting quarterback.
I did not say
We will play multiple quarterbacks, maybe for quite a while. I'm not sure. And I today I went in and looked at the roster and kind of where we're at, and we will have more players competing on game day for multiple games than ever before. And the reason is why, as I said earlier, is we have so many new players, we don't know a lot about them. We watch them in practice, but some guys play different in games they do in practice. I think the fair thing is to let them play, put guys in games, see what they do. And if we didn't feel like that if they gave us an opportunity to win, we wouldn't do it. And as I said earlier, if at any position, if we had what would be just a clear-cut guy who was considerably better than the others and gave us a much better chance to be successful, then we would do that at every position. Obviously, the quarterback position gets more attention than others, but I think we'll play a number of guys at a number of positions for several games to give everybody a fair chance to see what they can do and how they can produce.
Mike, what do you attribute that to? Is this the portal era?
Part of it, yes. Yeah. Well, the portal has brought in 38 new players. Not the portal, but basically those numbers are inflated because of that. So we don't know. For example, Bowman's doing really well, but hasn't played in 2 years. And we know what he did quite a while ago, but he's an example of a young man that's in our program that we really like, but we can't discredit anybody that's been in our program that we really like.
Mike, do you have a plan of this guy's going to get this many reps, this guy's going to get so many reps at quarterback, or just going to let the game flow kind of dictate?
That's been talked about, and the good news is I don't have to make that decision right now. We don't have to make that decision right now. I'm leaning toward when we go in the game, we'll have a plan. So at least there's some sort of communication and guys know what to expect. We all know this. You watch a lot of college football. It's the only position that players don't rotate in. Every other position, guys rotate in and nobody ever talks about it. So I would like to have a plan going in and say this is what we're going to do. That way, those involved mentally know what's in front of them.
Have you had the discussions with him about, hey, multiple of you guys are going to play going into the given week, or is that just going to work out itself?
Well, it'll work out now. But they know that based on the reps and the way that practice is being handled at this time. There were, not that I have to bring any witnesses to the table, but you could ask the 5, 6, 7, 8 people that watch us practice all the time, and it would really be hard to name one guy and say, okay, he deserves to play more than the others. It'd be extremely difficult. So I have an obligation, we have an obligation to the team, which we'll try to do the best we can, and we have an obligation to the members on our team to give everybody an opportunity.
I'd like to see us move to other positions, but I'm going to ask one more quarterback question just because I'm one of those guys that gets to see. I've watched real closely to see how their relationships are. Because when you get a competition, sometimes, you can tell. Guys are battling each other and they're not getting along. The sign is they get along great.
Yeah, they, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. It's the one position that we don't really rotate people in, but it's also the one position where the majority of the time they get along. Not all the time, but the majority of the time they get along. It's such a cerebral position that they like to watch each other. They like to watch tape. They like to evaluate why did you do that? They like to think those things through. And they're good young men. They all have different personalities. They all have different ways of communicating with the team. And so for that reason, we'll give them opportunities to play.
Mike, you talked before about how Bowman comes in with the backpack and the haircut and kind of looks like a little bit of a different dude. But you've had an older quarterback in that position before with Brandon. Are there things that older guys inherently bring to the table that maybe have helped with the fact that you do have some younger guys at that position going through this battle that's still ongoing?
I think they bring different maturity. So, Corn Dog was that way. I don't know how old he was when he finally played here, but he was at least 23. So he brought a lot of that. He was old school, waited his turn. Those days are gone. Bowman's personality is different because he's been through a lot. They had played different quarterbacks when he was at Tech. He was involved in something like this then, I think. I don't remember for sure, but they were playing different guys. And then obviously being at Michigan and not playing much, but being around, in a good program. So he brings a lot of experience and maybe more patience than the other ones would, just from being older.
Simple question. You've been at this stage of your career, 18 previous times. Probably felt 18 different ways, maybe not, but just simply, how do you feel about this football team at this point heading into the first game?
I feel good about their work ethic. I feel good about their commitment to our culture. I feel good about them buying into the system. But there's more uncertainty now than ever before because of the number of players that will be on the field playing at times that have not played for us before. I didn't actually count them up, but I'm going to guess it's close to double digits.
Mike,
So there's some uncertainty there.
sorry, these last several years, you've been really good against non-conference opponents to begin the year. Across a lot of different quarterbacks and coordinators, and everything has changed. What's the thread that ties all that together?
Well, it's similar to the answer that I had there with Robert, and Dave and I were talking about it earlier today. We don't get out of our box a lot, and there's certain things we believe in. And whether it goes the way that us or the public thinks it should have or not, we might make some minor changes in offense, defense, special teams, or the way we handle our team, but it's not going to be very much. I don't think that young men want a lot of change. I think they want structure. I think they want discipline. I think they want to be told what direction to go. And once they understand this is the direction that we need to go to be successful, if you then start to give them multiple ways to get there, I think it confuses them. Then they doubt the system. So we don't get out of our box much. We stay with what we believe in, and we continue to instill and preach the same basic principles that we think helps us be successful on Saturdays.
Mike, this offseason, this quarterback competition, what kind of a safety net has it created at that position?
Meaning, what do you mean?
In case of injury, in case of somebody can't play?
Well, it's definitely an advantage, is that because sometimes you go in, like last year, we went into the season with a very experienced player and then not any experience behind them. And we're not very good at running the football. We had to play young quarterbacks. It was on their shoulders. They struggled because we couldn't rush the football. Hopefully now that's not an issue. That is one advantage of this situation. You'll get it from different sides. People will say your team doesn't know who your leader is, your team doesn't know who the quarterback is. It creates confusion. I don't believe that at all, more so now than maybe I would have bought that 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't believe that at all. I was at a function last night and a group of people, and somebody asked me how recruiting is going now at the high school level with the high school players knowing about our new Big 12 conference and the teams that are going to be in it. And I wanted to give a very bipartisan coach's answer, which was, hey, it's going great. They're fired up about the conference and all this. But the truth of the matter is, if you asked them directly, they wouldn't be able to tell you who's in the new Big 12 because it's not something at their age that they worry about. So it's just different than it ever has been. But what you're saying is right. If we have to go to another guy, we've had multiple guys that have had a considerable number of reps from spring ball all the way up until today.
I know a lot of the focus is on those three, but how in step with Allen and Garrett and Gunner has Zane been?
How was what?
How
Zane?
How has he looked?
Yeah, Zane has done great. Zane has done great and's got a tremendous future ahead of him here. But he's not ready. And there shouldn't be a freshman quarterback in most cases. Have there been some that have done it? Sure. Can it be done? Sure. We haven't had a lot of success with it. And at times it can be difficult with the style of defenses that we see nowadays. The game has changed considerably, and so many things for a quarterback to see going on at one time. I don't have anything against it. I just know that physically their bodies aren't really ready for it, and then mentally it can be a challenge. Not that it can't be done, but it can be a challenge.
You might be able to speak to this from your own experience when you play the position. There's something to the idea that a quarterback thrives most of all when he knows it's his offense.
Sure, I don't think there's well, I don't know if it thrives. I mean, there's been a number of quarterbacks that knew it was their offense and they didn't play very well. You talking about mentally, pregame, all that? Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
So would you ideally want to name single that down to one guy by Big 12 play, or are you comfortable stretching this out the whole season if it lasts?
I would think that at the most after a few games we would be able to maybe settle in. But, like, put yourself in my shoes, okay? Put 30 years on your life or however old the four of you guys are. You know, the other day somebody sent me a highlight. I would have sworn Tylan Wallace was in my staff meeting and he caught a back shoulder touchdown pass. He looked just like him the other day. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, well, anyway, he caught a back shoulder touchdown pass, and it looked just like Trayson, but it was Tylan. But anyway, put yourself in my shoes, okay? If you have multiple guys that are close and you think they can help you win, why would we treat them any different than we do the wide receivers? Other than maybe what history tells you, what Garen's brought up. That's just what people have done. So from that standpoint, I would prefer that we were able to just say one way or the other, but sometimes I don't have that luxury. And at this time right now, that's one of those times.
Just for fun, since you brought up a Tylan Wallace reference, did you see him in the joint practice with the Redskins last week when he got into it and doing a haymaker?
Yeah, Gage sent me the TikTok or whatever it is. He sent that to me, and I did see that little clip. Yes.
I don't know that Tylan Wallace. I don't think I ever saw him do anything like that here.
Yeah, I guess the guy likes his job and whatever he makes in the NFL, and he wants to keep it. So,
regardless of who you have at quarterback at whatever point in the game, obviously what this offensive line can do is going to be crucial to them.
And running the ball.
Right. Where is your confidence level with the new stuff in particular that you put in up front?
We're better now than we were when we ended, which I said that the other day, and somebody said, well, it's not saying a lot. And so, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that, but we're better now because we're healthy. And up to this point, we've stayed healthy at the offensive line for 15 practices in the spring, and then however many practices we've had now, 18 or 19, whatever it's been. And that plays a big role in it. So we'll be a better run blocking team, and we'll be better overall on the offensive line when we play next week.
Like you talked a lot about not going outside of your box, and so when it comes to instilling the run offense under center at a time when football is more pass-centric than ever, and then when teams are running power out of different sets and formations, I guess why now was the time then to go out of that box and make that change?
The offensive adjustments. So really, you're too young, but we're circling back. This is some of the stuff that we're doing. You would have seen it in 2007, 2007, 2008, whatever you want to call it. And kind of circle back a little bit to it, just based on earlier what I said, that I felt we were behind when we had to play young quarterbacks last year. We didn't give ourselves as good a chance as we needed to because we couldn't rush the ball and take the pressure off of them. I've used the example with what they did in San Francisco when Garoppolo got hurt. And they put Brock in, and they won, and they played well, and he didn't have to do a lot in the games. Not that maybe he could have, but they didn't put it on his shoulders. They rushed the ball, let McCaffrey and those guys make a bunch of plays. He threw a throw or two here and there. And that brought me to the point where, that's pretty smart. We have to be able to do that. Or that's what I'm most comfortable with now. We're not the finished product, but I believe we're further ahead than we were.
Mike, obviously the offensive line is central to running the ball better, but do you need better out of your running backs, or were they so hemmed in that maybe you didn't even get a true vision of what they could have been these last couple of years?
There's a percent of that, yes, but we need better out of them also. But there was times there just wasn't much there.
When you say you're going to play multiple quarterbacks, is that 2 or 3?
It'll be more than one, and it could very well be 3. And I can't say for sure because I don't know for sure how the game's going to go. The question that got brought up earlier, you would like to have a format, but I reserve the right to change the format during the process if it's something I think that we need to do for whatever reason.
Is the fact that if you're playing a high caliber opponent, whoever, Kansas State, would you not go with this plan, or would you still go with this plan?
We would be essentially in the same plan, and it's based on what the players have done in practice, and as we watch them have success, I feel obligated to give them a chance to play in the game. I'll go back to, like I said earlier, like it would be with other positions.
I know on Central Arkansas, they've got a veteran quarterback, a kid from Des Moines. I think you guys recruited him a little bit. Some good running backs that kind of lean on their run game, and then a blast from the past, Greg Stewart, who I know you faced several times at other schools, is now the DC. Mm-hmm. What do you think of Central Arkansas?
Yeah, he's, the head man's been there. I think he's in about his 5th year or something. Yeah. He's kind of settled in there, and they've done well. They seem to have the system they believe in, and they do have an advantage with a mature quarterback, and the things that we're talking about today, they're not talking about. A guy that's experienced, and they know who their guy is, wherever that makes it right or wrong. And they've they have guys that have rushed the ball well. We've made our guys aware of it. We've watched the tape. We'll prepare for this game like we do every other game. And, hopefully we can go out and play really well to start the game.
You excited to see what this defense will do in a game situation? You've seen them all spring and fall camp. See the defense in a game situation?
Well, there's a number of things that are exciting for me this year. One, with the number of players that we have that are going to play in the first game will be 4 to 5 times what it would be in a season opener in my last 18 years. So I'm excited to watch those guys play. I mean, there's a number of them, right? You talk about, you got the corner, you got 3 D linemen, you got at least 1 linebacker, you've got 1 safety, you've got a couple wideouts, you got running backs, you got quarterbacks, receiver. So it's upwards of close to double digits. So I'm excited to see when we're in our odd front how we do and what it looks like. And then excited to see where everything meshes and comes together with all the new players.
Do you typically go over and listen a lot to the defensive side on your headset?
I hear everything, yes.
Mike, with not playing a Power 5 opponent to start with this new defense, what do you want to see? What will be your measures for success first game with Brian's offense?
So I want to see great effort because we have a number of guys. We will play a lot of guys on defense. No matter who we were playing the first game, we've got a lot of guys that have earned the right to play the first game on defense. We'll play a number of guys which should allow them to play with great effort and then minimal mistakes to be in the right spot, alignment, understand their assignment, run and hit and tackle, and play with good effort. And that's kind of what I'm looking for on that side of the ball.
Have you done enough with scrimmage situations in practice to have a feel for what kind of a game day coach Nardo is going to be?
No. I mean, I'm going to say that he's going to be pretty good, but you don't really know till it happens. I mean, you don't know. So now it'd be too early for me to tell.
What is it that makes you think he'll be good?
I just think he's smart. I think he's knowledgeable about his craft. He has a calm demeanor. He doesn't scream in practice and doesn't yell. So I'm going to guess that he's going to be very similar to that on game day, which is kind of what I think gives you the best chance for success. Not always, but there's guys that are screamers and yellers and throw Coke cans in the press box and all that have had success, but I'm not sure at all the times you can think at your best and highest when you're somewhat out of control. I don't see him being a guy that's going to be out of control on game day.
Whatever amount of mystery you had over Yersich, his first year coming from
Shippensburg.
how quick did he alleviate any whatever reservations you might have?
It was a little different with Mike. I guess midway to 3/4 of the way through the season, I said he's going to be okay. Best I remember, we opened at Houston against Dak Prescott, I think was his first game. So it was a little different. And I was concerned about that. And then he was fine in that game. You know, he made a good adjustment. We went to run an option out of 3 backs because we couldn't throw it and ended up winning the game. And that was a nice adjustment that he made on that day. So I felt good about him after that. But, I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't have a little bit of uncertainty for another 4, 5, 6 games. Then I felt comfortable.
Do you feel like this could be a little bit like when you brought Jim Knowles in?
With Brian, I hope not. It took 2 years when we brought Jim in to get going, you know, and Jim is a fantastic defensive coach, and he's very, 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 very intelligent, but it took a couple years, and that might have worked against him a little bit. You know, I had to go in and we had to sit down and talk about some things we needed to change, and I'm not a defensive guy. I just know that we need to change. This is not going to work. And he's smart enough to make the changes, and then we got good at it, and then we were close to perfecting it before he left.
Is this an easier time for defensive coordinators to come into this league than it was even when Jim came aboard? Does it settle down in terms of the chaos?
The offensive play,
like what you're up
yeah,
against
it's different now than it was. You know, we went on a stretch there about 6 or 8 years where, you know, it was basketball on grass, and it's changed a little bit now. You know, you're seeing multiple styles of defense, offense, but you're not seeing it in a track meet form. So if you took a poll with the coordinators, I'd say it's probably somewhat more comforting now than it was then. And we went through a stretch of a number of years where we were playing with half the league had potential NFL quarterbacks playing in it, 4, 5, 6 guys in the league. That's tough on defense coordinators. When you play teams that have quarterbacks good enough to play in the NFL, it's tough.
Justin Kirkland fascinates me. The heaviest player on your team played tennis in high school. What have you seen from him now that he has a Big 12 offseason under his belt?
He's done really well. I think he's in good physical condition, the best physical condition you can be in at 358 pounds. He's works hard, pushes, plays the game. He's one of those players. It's going to be interesting to see what he does, because he's in a different level than where he was at. He's developed his body. He's reduced his body fat. He's added muscle mass, and he's in good physical condition for a guy that big. So I'm excited about watching him play. You know, you think about the field turf at Kickoff will be between 150 and 160 degrees, up to 5 feet high. And when you're a man that big, it's not easy to go out and play a game with all those pads on and such. So we'll find out where we're at with our conditioning based on a guy like him that you hopefully can get out there and give you 30 good snaps.
How involved are you as head coach with Rob and what he's doing with your conditioning and strength program through the offseason? Like, how involved are you? You just kind of see the results.
Look at me. You can tell I don't do any strength and conditioning. Rob is a master at what he does, and I let him roll. He tells me what we do conditioning-wise. So I'll go down and ask him, where are we at? What do you think? Do we need to run? What do you want more tempo offense? What do you want to get the guys ready? And he'll tell me. And I do whatever he tells me.
When some leagues start they'll like play a week 1 conference game. Does it help with so many oars on the depth chart that you have 3 non-cons before you dive into Big 12 play?
Does it help in what manner?
Just that you kind of get a better feeling out period before you start your conference schedule.
Oh, I think most coaches would tell you that if you're, if you're playing a game where the odds makers are saying it's a pick 'em, that your preseason approach has to be different. Ours would be. And we've started the season like that sometimes. And so we've had to prepare differently just from the matter of fact that the game could be much more physical than what you would anticipate at the 1st of September.
Outside of Kendall and Corey, you have a bunch of new guys in the back end of your defense. How do you kind of feel about that group and those new guys?
Again, with the style that we're using when we're in the odd front, which we will be quite a bit, I like what I've seen so far, but it's always been difficult to evaluate where you're at as a team because they're going against the same guys for 30 days. Okay, so the defensive line and the offensive line know each other. Defense knows the snap count. The secondary guys you're asking about, after the first 3 or 4 steps, they know the route because they've seen it so many times. That's what's fun about the early part of the season. And I went in the staff room. I asked the offensive guys, tell me, how good are we on the defensive line? What do y'all think? And I get their opinion. Just because I can tell sometimes, but sometimes I can't. And I go in the defense. How good are we at running back? What do y'all think about a wideout? Kind of gives me a feel. Sometimes it's good news, sometimes it's bad news. But it's hard to evaluate because they see each other so much. That's why it's fun to watch them play.
You talked about a lot of guys that you're excited to see play that may not have that experience, but Stribling is a guy that has a lot of experience. What have you seen from him?
And we have a number of guys like that. Justin's that way, Stribling's that way, Goodlow's that way. We got a number of guys that have that, but they still haven't done it in our system, and they haven't done it with our culture and in our schemes. And that's why it's just a little bit different. And I'm going to go back to what we started this press conference with. That's why we got to let them play. Okay, I feel obligated. Put them on the field, let them play. Let's watch them play, and then try to get a feel for who we are, who they are.
Has he been beneficial for a group that's had some changes, Stribling?
Has he been what?
Pretty beneficial for a group that's had.
He's done really well. Yeah, he's that group, as they've learned the offense, there's still a side of what they do that they have to learn to play with speed and tempo because we still have that in our system. It's difficult for those guys and the quarterback. So it takes them a little longer. And I feel like with him and Leon, that once I could see when they crossed the finish line as far as, okay, I get it now. I can just go line up and play and function, not have to think a lot. And that's helped them, and I feel like that both those guys have got that side of it conquered.
On any team, it's always good to have a guy that keeps everybody loose. Have you been able to tell which guys you have out there that can kind of relax the situation?
Oh, goofballs. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, you would have to ask them that. Ollie Gordon's a good candidate for that. Defensively,
Oliver seems to be able to crack it.
yeah, but he practices so hard. He doesn't have time to, he stays pretty focused all the time. The one guy that I see that does a good job of that is Ollie. But I haven't noticed really anybody else that falls into his category.
You mentioned the heat a moment ago. Does that play into your strategy or game plan, particularly on offense? When you guys can go fast, do you maybe try to back off a little bit, not push them as hard?
We have to play multiple players. It's 160 on the field. So it's almost somewhat impossible to think that a guy's going to go out and play 75 plays. So the strategy behind it for us would be, we know we're going to have to play multiple guys. So whoever's out there at backer, you're out there a couple, 3 series, and then the next guy is going in. Same as what we might have told quarterbacks. The D linemen, they'll rotate right from the start. O linemen are the only guys that don't normally sub in and sub out. But we will have to play multiple linemen. We won't just play 5 linemen in this game. It's too hot. We'll have to rotate some guys in.
What'd you say it was on the field?
It'll be between 150 and 160 up to 5 feet tall.
That seems dangerous. That seems dangerous.
It is. The other day we practiced over here a few days ago. We had that really bad day, and so I went out on the outdoor turf over here and ran just to see how miserable it made me. And I was disappointed I did it, because then I knew people were watching me and I wanted to quit. And I didn't want to do it after just one lap. But it didn't take many more to where I acted like I was in a new pattern where I was doing a jog and a walk and a jog and a walk. But it's hot. It's really hot.
Did the new turf that got installed, is that going to help with it at all?
It does.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have the texture. The rubber beads are not black. They're green. They're kind of the color of your shorts. And so they don't absorb as much heat. So it doesn't bounce off and put as much heat out there, and it does help, yes. How much, I don't know.
How about tight ends? Quentin and...
Got a number of them.
Yeah.
I don't know
Do
who
they bring
put,
different things to the table?
I don't know who they put down on this list. Josiah, and you got Q, you got Ian, and then, you have Cassidy and Schultz and Luke at fullback. Those guys will get more reps now than what they have traditionally got over the last 6 to 8 years.
Like you asked about the guys in the portal, everybody does.
Yep.
Does that make you change anything in the way you guys go about your business throughout the year, even when the rhythm of the season starts?
We change.
Re-recruiting your own players, that kind of stuff?
Not so much re-recruiting our own players. Again, this is the one area that I've said multiple times, I don't mind saying it, I don't know what the answer is with all this going on right now. We only try to come up with a plan that we think's best. But what I shared with our coaches is we want to treat our guys the way they need to be treated. We still want to have our culture that has a lot of discipline, structure, and accountability. And if in that culture a player chooses to leave because it's something they don't want to do, then I'm okay with that, because they should leave, because we need guys that are going to function in our culture. Right or wrong, that's just the culture. And so I don't want to re-recruit our players. I think you re-recruit them by the way you handle them. And as I said at the start of August, and I said again today, there's guys that have practiced well enough that need to play in the games. And the portal has opened my eyes a little bit to, if a young man comes in and says, I never had a chance, and if he never really had a chance, I don't have anything to say to him other than, yeah, you're right, you probably never got a chance. I understand. So we're giving players a chance to play and go out and compete. So we find out more about them and they find out more about us. So there have been some changes there, right or wrong.
A couple of weeks ago, you shared with us where you think this whole enterprise is headed in college football. I asked you about Super League, NFL Life, whatever you want to call it. You said it's coming. 3 years, 3.5, I think you said. Is there one thing you'd like to see happen here to secure OSU's place in that super conference or NFL Live, whenever that day arrives?
We're in. OSU's in. OSU's viewership, our history of winning over the last 18 years, we sell out. I would be shocked if it happened in 3 years if we're not in. But we're getting ready to build a new facility. Dr. Schrum is putting a new football facility in with Human Performance Center over here across the street. So we'll have another top-of-the-line facility. We'll have a winning program. We have viewership. We have history. We have fan support. So OSU will be in a great position if that ever happens. I think eventually it will, because all of the geography that we're dealing with is ultimately going to be more of an issue than what people think. You know, it's like if you move somewhere and think, yeah, it's okay, I'll just drive to work. And then you start driving every day and it's like 40 minutes. When I coached at the University of Maryland, I had a 40-minute one-way. That was if I left the house at 5:45. And then if I had to be gone in the off-season before 3:45 or wait till 6:30. Or potentially could be longer, and I didn't think it was a big deal. After a while, it was a big deal. So that's why I think it'll change. People are going to realize that maybe we got out of our box a little bit, but either way, Oklahoma State will be in good shape.
How recently would you have worried about this?
Would I have worried?
What about OSU's security of something like we're talking about?
I don't know. I guess. I mean, we've. I mean, knock on wood, we've been pretty good for a long time. So, I mean, I don't remember things really well past about not very long ago. We were winning big in 2010. So now we hadn't been consistent then, right? That was we were kind of new. But then we ran through however many years now, we built consistency. And so at that point, you become a pretty prominent force in college football if it ever gets to a super conference realignment.
Last one.
A report came out earlier this week about your favorite musical artist, and it came up as Prince. And so, are you more of a Sign of the Times guy or a Purple Rain, or what's your favorite Prince album?
I've always liked Purple Rain. Prince is a musical genius that was 20 years ahead of his time with sound. How old are you now?
25.
Okay, so you ever listen to it?
Yeah.
Okay, but so back in the 80s when he was going, he was making sounds that were, I said 15 years ahead of the times with the things he was doing. Be interesting if they ever got to those other 200 songs that nobody's ever gotten to that he didn't think that were good enough to release. Be interesting if we ever got to those. But I'm a pretty big Prince fan. Purple Rain's a pretty good run.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Good? All right, guys. Thanks.